Hello there and welcome. This session is designed to help you ease into deep, restful sleep. We'll begin with a simple meditation to calm your body and quiet your mind. Then, as you drift closer to sleep, I'll introduce a gentle bedtime story, just enough to carry you into your dreams. Before we begin, press the like button and subscribe for more sleep story videos. I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment saying where you're listening from and what time. Find a comfortable position, close your eyes, and take a deep breath in and out. Take a slow, deep breath in and exhale gently. One more time, inhale deeply, filling your lungs with fresh, soothing air. And as you exhale, let go of the day, releasing any tension, any thoughts that no longer serve you. With each breath, feel your body becoming lighter, more at ease, sinking into comfort. You're doing great. Next, bring your awareness to the top of your head. Imagine a warm, gentle light resting there, like the soft glow of a bedside lamp. This light begins to spread slowly, easing away any tension in your forehead, softening the space between your eyebrows, relaxing your eyelids, your cheeks, your jaw. There's nothing you need to hold on to. Just let everything soften, loosen, unwind. Feel your shoulders drop slightly as if a weight has been lifted. Your arms become heavy, sinking into deep relaxation. With every breath, this warmth moves lower, your chest rising and falling effortlessly, your stomach soft and calm, your legs and feet completely at rest. The world around you fades into quiet. There is nothing to do, nowhere to be. Just this moment, just rest. Imagine yourself wrapped in a cozy, soft blanket of stillness, safe, warm, and peaceful. Each breath carries you deeper into comfort, deeper into rest, deeper into sleep. And here's tonight's cozy bedtime story. Drifting Masterpieces. The moment the sun teetered on the horizon, I prepared for my ritual. The sky was my canvas, the clouds my willing subjects. Every evening the world held its breath as I reached for my softest pastels, hues carefully chosen from centuries of experience. My enchanted brush, delicate yet mighty, was my conduit between reality and dreams. I alone wielded its power, and I alone bore the responsibility of painting the sky. But tonight, fate had other plans. As my fingers closed around the handle, the wind conspired against me. A cruel gust swept through my fingers, and before I could react, the brush slipped from my grasp. It twirled and twisted, catching the dying light as it danced toward the unseen. I lunged, but my efforts were in vain. My brush, my soul's extension, vanished into the wind. For a moment I stood frozen, my heart hammering against my ribs. My breath faltered. Never in all my years had I lost control of my brush. The sky, once awaiting my touch, now loomed above me, blank and expectant. A painter without his tool, an artist without his craft. I was undone. I peered into the distance, hoping to catch a glimpse of it drifting back to me, but it was gone. The wind howled as if mocking me, swirling around my feet before vanishing into the twilight. The realization struck me hard. I had lost more than a brush. I had lost my purpose. Desperation took hold. I searched through the fields where the golden grasses swayed, through the ancient trees that whispered secrets of old. I scoured the rocky cliffs that jutted toward the heavens, hoping my brush had found refuge there. My fingertips brushed the earth, tracing runes in the soil, calling upon the magic that bound me to my task. Nothing. The sky darkened without my touch. The colors, once guided by my hand, bled together in chaos. A muddled gray swallowed the sunset, smothering the warmth and wonder I had once so carefully crafted. Below, the dreamers who often watched in awe at my work stirred in their evening musings, confused. Their slumber would be restless, their dreams unformed, broken. Panic flared within me. Was this the end? Had my duty been stripped from me by an unseen force? Or was this my own folly, a punishment for my arrogance in believing that I was infallible? No, I would not accept this. The brush was mine. It had chosen me, just as I had chosen this path. If I had lost it, I would find it. If it had been taken, I would reclaim it, even if it meant following the winds to the edges of the world. I would not let my art, my soul, be lost to the void. I turned my gaze toward the horizon, where the last shreds of gold clung stubbornly to the sky. My journey was beginning. The sky, now a wounded beast, needed its artist, and I, Marlow, would not let it remain undone. For the first time, the sunset fades without color, leaving only a dull gray. The world, which once bled with the hues of dusk under my brush, now stands lifeless, a shadow of its former self. My fingers twitch, aching for the familiar grip of my paintbrush, but it is gone, lost, broken, or stolen. I do not know. I stand at the edge of the cliff, staring at the pale horizon, hollow with absence. Without my brush, without color, I feel like a specter, a man half-lived. Then, as despair wraps its cold fingers around me, a breeze stirs the air. It is not like the usual wind that skims the cliffs and rattles the dry grass. It moves with purpose, whispering secrets in a voice I barely catch. I close my eyes, willing myself to listen beyond the rustling. And there, in the hush of the moment, a name emerges from the sighing wind, Zephyra. The syllables dance in the air, curling around me, warm and knowing. The wind shifts, becoming more than air, more than sound. A presence forms within the currents, delicate and powerful, like the stroke of a master painter's hand against untouched canvas. Marlow, the voice speaks, weaving itself into the air, familiar yet otherworldly. I do not question how I know her name. It is as if I have always known it, as if she has been calling to me for years, waiting for me to finally listen. My breath shudders in my chest as I whisper back, Zephyra. A shape emerges from the wind, swirling tendrils coalescing into form. She is not of flesh, but of movement, her hair a river of unseen currents, her eyes reflecting endless skies. She glides closer, the air around her charged with the scent of distant rains and sun-warmed fields. "You have lost your gift," she says, though it is not a question. I clench my fists. "It was taken from me." Her head tilts as if she weighs my words against unseen truths. "Perhaps it was never meant to be held in your hands alone." The ache in my chest sharpens. My art has always been mine, the colors flowing through my veins, the brush an extension of my very soul. To paint is to exist, and now, without it, I feel undone. Without it, I am nothing. Zephyra steps closer, the wind brushing my skin like fingers tracing forgotten melodies. "Then let me show you another way." The wind swells around me, lifting my feet from the ground. Panic seizes me, but before I can cry out, I am carried upward, higher than the cliffs, into the sky itself. The world below fades to a patchwork of grays and blues, the sea stretching endlessly beyond the horizon. I twist, trying to understand what she is doing, but then color blooms. Not on canvas, not through bristles soaked in pigment, but in the sky itself. The wind swirls in vibrant strokes, shades of crimson and gold dancing in unseen currents. I watch, transfixed, as the sky becomes my canvas and the wind becomes my brush. It moves as I will it, responding to the rhythm of my breath, the beat of my heart. I reach out instinctively, and the air obeys, spinning into indigo spirals, bursts of ochre and amber. It is not paint, but it is art, alive and untamed. I laugh, pure, unrestrained laughter. The joy of creation sings through me again, a fire rekindled from dying embers. Zephyra watches, a knowing smile in her storm-lit eyes. "You were never meant to be confined to a brush," she says. "You are meant to paint the sky." The realization is as breathtaking as the view beneath me. I was never truly lost. I was merely searching for the wrong tools. The gift was never in the brush. It was in me all along. As the wind carries me through my first masterpiece, I know without doubt that I will never stop painting again. The wind stirred like a whisper, curling around Zephyra as she turned to me, her silver blue gaze shimmering in the fading twilight. "Beyond the horizon, Marlow," she said, her voice a soft melody carried by the air. "That is where the brush has gone. I can feel it." The brush, that ancient relic, that singular tool capable of crafting constellations upon the blank expanse of night. It had vanished, swept away by unseen hands, and now Zephyra, guardian of the celestial canvas, had turned to me. "Will you fly with me?" she asked, extending a slender hand. The sky was deepening, shifting into an indigo sea speckled with the first pinpricks of starlight. I hesitated, glancing at the dark horizon, its secrets stretching beyond what my eyes could grasp. I was no stranger to the unknown, but this was something else entirely. Yet there was something in Zephyra's expression, an unspoken urgency, a need, and I knew there was only one answer I could give. I grasped her hand. A current of energy surged through me, cool as the evening breeze, lifting me from the ground. The earth fell away as we ascended, the air turning lighter, more fluid, as if the sky itself was welcoming us. Zephyra guided our ascent, her presence an anchor amidst the vast open space. Below, the world shrank into a patchwork of dark fields and silver rivers, a dreamscape suspended between dusk and dawn. Higher we soared, the stars waking in earnest, blinking open like watchful eyes. They pulsed, responding to Zephyra's presence, their light bending toward her as though whispering secrets only she could hear. "We must go beyond what is seen," she murmured, her voice brushing against my thoughts like silk. "Beyond the edge of night, where the horizon breathes and the sky remembers." A tremor ran through the air, something ancient stirring at her words. The very fabric of the sky rippled, and with a sweep of her hand, a fissure of light appeared before us, shimmering like the surface of a hidden lake. Zephyra turned to me, her gaze steady. "Are you ready, Marlow?" There was no turning back now. I nodded, and together we stepped through. A sensation unlike any I had known before enveloped me, a weightless drift through a space that was neither here nor there. The air shimmered around us, thick with echoes of forgotten stars, their light whispering past in delicate strands of gold and silver. Then we emerged. The sky beyond the horizon was not like the sky I had always known. Here the darkness was rich and endless, yet alive, breathing in quiet pulses of luminescent color. Galaxies coiled like sleeping serpents, their light undulating with the rhythm of some unseen tide. And there, drifting amidst the cosmic waves, was the brush. It was as Zephyra had said, stolen by unseen hands and abandoned beyond the reach of mortal sight. Suspended in the vast expanse, it shimmered with a quiet, pulsing glow as if waiting. Zephyra reached out, and the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then, as if sensing her presence, the brush shuddered and veered away, spiraling deeper into the abyss. "No!" Zephyra cried, launching forward, her form a streak of silver against the dark. I followed, the air around us thickening as if resisting our pursuit. The brush weaved through the stars, dancing just beyond reach, its path erratic, wild. Then the shadows moved. A shape detached itself from the darkness, massive and slow, yet undeniably aware. A figure, neither solid nor entirely spectral, loomed before us, its presence humming with an energy that made my skin prickle. A guardian. Zephyra halted, hovering in the void, her hands tightening at her sides. "Why do you resist?" she demanded. "This brush does not belong here. The stars need their artist." The guardian's voice was not a voice at all, but a resonance, a ripple through the space around us. Zephyra's expression darkened, her light intensifying. But not like this. The sky must not remain empty. The guardian regarded her, its form shifting like liquid shadow. A flicker of doubt passed over Zephyra's face, but only for a moment. Then she turned to me. "Marlow," she said, her voice calm but firm. "It must be you." My breath hitched. "Me?" She nodded. The brush will not yield to me alone. But you are neither guardian nor celestial. You stand between. It will listen to you. I looked at the brush, still hovering between us and the guardian, its glow faltering, uncertain. It was waiting. I reached out, my fingers grazing the edges of its light. A jolt ran through me, and suddenly the universe unfolded in my mind. The stories of the stars, the weight of creation, the whispers of all who had painted the night before. The guardian loomed closer. The choice was mine. I met Zephyra's gaze, saw the trust in her eyes. My heart pounded, but my decision was already made. I gripped the brush. Light exploded outward, rushing through me in waves of color and sound. The universe was no longer distant. It was within me, around me, a canvas awaiting its first stroke. I raised the brush, and I began to paint. The river was unlike anything I had ever seen. It arched across the sky as if suspended by invisible threads, a flowing ribbon of liquid light, glowing softly in hues that shifted like the embers of a dying fire. The reflections of past sunsets shimmered on its undulating surface, casting fleeting memories of warmth and color. It was a sight both familiar and foreign, a confluence of time and water, a stream where the past was not lost but transformed, cradled within the ripples of the present. Beside me, the old turtle observed in quiet reverence, his wise eyes mirroring the river's glow. He was a creature who had seen the shifting of countless tides, the slow, inevitable movement of ages. Keeper of the river's memories, he carried the weight of time upon his shell, each line etched into it like a story whispered by the universe itself. "Beauty is never lost," he said, his voice carrying the resonance of an ancient truth. "It simply changes form." I turned to him, my mind grasping at the words as they echoed within me. "Then all that we love, the things we lose, they are not truly gone?" The turtle gave a slow, deliberate nod. "Not as long as they are remembered. Not as long as they find new shapes in the ever-flowing current of existence." I stared into the river, watching the golden hues of long-forgotten sunsets shift beneath its translucent waves. In them I saw glimpses of places I had known, faces I had loved. My childhood home dappled in the light of late afternoon. My mother's laughter carried on the wind, the gentle touch of a hand I once held. They flickered there, momentary and luminous, before the river carried them away, reshaping them into something new. A sudden ache settled in my chest, not sadness, but a deep longing, a yearning to understand. If nothing is lost, then where does it go? How do we find it again? The turtle exhaled, a breath as slow and deliberate as the turning of the stars. "You do not find it, Marlow. You let it find you." His words wove through me like the river's current, and I let them settle. To chase the past was to chase the wind, but to stand still, to watch, to listen. Perhaps that was how one allowed beauty to return, reshaped by time, waiting to be seen anew. I stepped forward, my feet feeling weightless upon the soft glow beneath me. The river hummed, a melody of forgotten voices, and I knelt, dipping my fingers into its light. It was warm, warmer than I expected. It pulsed against my skin, tiny waves forming and dissipating as if responding to my touch. The sensation was neither water nor air, but something between, something alive. As I watched, the ripples solidified into an image, a face. It was my father's. My breath caught in my throat. His eyes met mine, familiar and full of things unspoken. He smiled, not as a ghost, not as a memory fading into darkness, but as something living within this radiant current. The turtle did not speak, but I felt his presence beside me, a silent guide bearing witness. The image shifted, and I saw my father not as he was in his final days, frail and fading, but as he had been, strong, laughing, lifting me high into the air as a child. It was a fragment of time I had nearly forgotten, now alive again within the river's embrace. The warmth in my chest grew, and the ache I had carried for so long softened into something else, something lighter. "You see," the turtle murmured, "he has not left you. He has merely changed form." I nodded, unable to speak. Tears welled in my eyes, not from grief, but from a quiet understanding. The river whispered against my skin, and as I withdrew my hand, the image faded back into the flowing light. My father was still there, somewhere within it, carried forward, transformed, but never truly lost. I turned to the turtle, my voice steady now. "What is this place?" "It is the river of echoes," he answered, "where time bends and memory lingers. It is a threshold, Marlow, a place between what was and what will be." I looked again at the glowing current, feeling its rhythm, its pulse. If this was a threshold, then perhaps I had been meant to find it, not to retrieve the past, but to understand its place within me. What happens if I step in? The turtle studied me, his gaze deep and knowing. "You will see as the river sees. You will walk among the echoes, feel their warmth, and understand their transformation. But remember, Marlow, you cannot stay. You must return to the world beyond, carrying what you have learned." A choice lay before me: to remain on the shore, forever gazing at the flickering light of memory, or to step forward and embrace the current, to feel the past not as loss, but as something ever present, reshaping itself with every heartbeat. I inhaled deeply. Then, with steady resolve, I took a step forward, and the river rose to meet me. The morning mist clung to our clothes as Zephyra and I stepped forward, following the gentle beckoning of Willow's hand. Her fingers, long and delicate as trailing ivy, wove through the air, gathering the lingering fog into a billowing swirl. The forest around us felt hushed, as if even the leaves were waiting to witness her craft. "Close your eyes, Marlow," Willow murmured, her voice as soft as the breath of the wind. I hesitated, but did as she asked. The air shifted, growing lighter, ethereal. When she finally spoke again, her words carried an edge of quiet triumph. "Now open them." Before me, cradled in the golden hush of dawn, lay the perfect recreation of my missing brush. Every bristle sculpted with such precision it seemed to gleam despite its ephemeral nature. The handle curled into my palm like an old friend rediscovered. I let out a breath I hadn't known I was holding. Zephyra grinned. "Well, try it." I turned, eyes locking onto the blank canvas propped against a knotted oak. My heart drummed. I dipped the cloud brush into my paints, and as the bristles met the canvas, I expected, hoped, that something miraculous would unfold. But the stroke was wrong. The pressure was too light, the control too fleeting. It didn't glide the way my old brush had, didn't carry the same whisper of creation beneath my fingertips. The color smeared, aimless and unsure. I frowned, tried again. Still the paint wavered, unsteady, refusing to blend as it should. Zephyra's brows knit together. "Marlow?" I clenched my jaw. This should have worked. It was perfect, wasn't it? Crafted by a weaver of clouds, spun from mist and memory. It should have been enough. I looked to Willow, but she only regarded me with knowing eyes, her hands now resting in the folds of her robe. There was no disappointment in her face, only patience. The kind of patience that spoke of understanding something I had not yet grasped. The realization came slow, a reluctant dawn over a storm-tossed sea. It was not the brush that had made my art. It was never the tool. It was me. My hands, my heart, the way I had once poured myself into every stroke. The brush had been a conduit, yes, but never the source. A hollow laughter bubbled from my throat, self-deprecating and bittersweet. "It's not the same." "No," Willow agreed gently. "It never could be." Zephyra shifted beside me, placing a hand on my shoulder. "So, what now?" The question lingered, heavy in the crisp morning air. My fingers curled around the mist brush one last time before I sighed and let it go. The cloud dissipated into the wind, twisting skyward in wisps of silver. "I start again," I said, determination threading through my voice. And so I did. With trembling fingers, I reached for a new brush. An ordinary one, wood and bristle, real and imperfect. I met the canvas anew, hesitance fading with every stroke. Not recreating what was lost, but forging something new, something true. As the morning stretched forward, color began to bloom where uncertainty had once lingered. And with it, so did I. I stood in the clearing, the damp earth cool beneath my feet, the air thick with the scent of wet leaves and the distant promise of a coming storm. Luna hovered before me, her silver wings flickering in the moonlight, a vision of ethereal grace. Her glow did not pierce the night, but rather danced with it, merging, shifting, a fluid interplay of light and darkness. "Marlow," she murmured, her voice like the whisper of wind through treetops. "Sometimes beauty is found in the unexpected." I did not know how to answer. My heart still carried the weight of a long journey, the ache of something lost. But Luna did not wait for my reply. She raised a delicate hand and gestured to the misty sky above. The rain had begun to fall, thin and fleeting at first, then in gentle, shimmering sheets. "Look," she said, tilting her head. I followed her gaze and saw the raindrops catch in the slanted beams of moonlight, suspended for a breathless instant before descending. They shone like silver pearls, a luminous cascade, each droplet carrying its own momentary brilliance before vanishing into the earth. The trees bowed beneath the weight of the storm, but in that fragile light they bore no sorrow, only a solemn kind of peace. Magic exists in the places we forget to look, Luna continued, drifting closer. Even in the shadows there is wonder. Even in sorrow there is light. I turned my eyes to her, searching. But what if the darkness is all that remains? What if the light is gone? She regarded me for a moment, her silver eyes unreadable. Then, with the faintest smile, she reached out and touched my hand. A warmth spread through me, something deep and old, something I had not felt in a long time. Light does not disappear, Marlow. It only waits to be seen. The words settled in my bones, their truth undeniable. I looked again at the world around me, the moonlit rain, the swaying trees, the way Luna's glow reflected in the trembling puddles at my feet. Everything was alive with quiet radiance, even in the heart of the night. For the first time in an age, I did not feel lost. The rain deepened, the wind rising with it, but Luna remained, her presence unwavering. She moved toward the trees, where the forest whispered in unseen tongues. I hesitated only a moment before following. The world within the trees was different than before. The path ahead shimmered, the puddles upon it not mere water, but mirrors reflecting constellations that should not have been there. The wind carried voices, not words, but the essence of forgotten stories, of ancient laughter, of something timeless calling me forward. "This way," Luna beckoned. I stepped forward, my reflection breaking upon the starlit puddles, and knew there was no turning back. I trailed Zephyra into the quiet sky forest, my footsteps hushed against the spongy silver moss that blanketed the ground. The trees here stretched impossibly tall, their trunks woven with threads of deep cerulean and soft gold, leaves catching the glow of unseen moons. The wind curled through the canopy, carrying with it something strange, an echo, a voice I had not heard in years, a whisper. I stopped. My pulse quickened. Zephyra glanced over her shoulder, her iridescent eyes narrowing. "You hear it, don't you?" she murmured, her voice a note against the hush. I swallowed hard, my fingers twitching at my side. My brush. The words tumbled from my lips before I could catch them, barely louder than the sighing wind. "It's calling me." The last time I had touched it, my brush, my gift, my curse, I had sworn never to pick it up again. I had cast it away, left it behind in the wreckage of my old life, buried beneath regret and the weight of what I had once created. Yet now its whisper curled through the air, threading through the trees like a forgotten melody. A whisper not just of bristles against canvas, but of something deeper, something ancient. Zephyra nodded as if she had expected this. "Come," she said, stepping forward. I hesitated. Where are we going? To what calls you? I wanted to protest. I wanted to tell her that some things are better left lost, that not everything should be found. But my feet betrayed me, following her through the drifting light of the sky forest. The trees breathed around us, shifting as though alive. It felt like stepping through the pages of an unfinished painting, one that had been waiting all this time for me to return. The whisper grew stronger. It was not just a sound anymore. It was a feeling, a pull, a weight pressing against my ribs, threading through my bones, reminding me of something I had tried to forget. Zephyra moved like a ghost through the trees, and I wondered how long she had known I would come here. How long had she been waiting? How much did she know about the thing I had abandoned? The path curled downward, spiraling toward the roots of the sky forest. The air thickened, heavy with the scent of rain and memory. The deeper we went, the more the colors around us changed, darkening into twilight hues, as though the forest itself was a canvas bleeding into a deeper shade. And then, in the clearing below, I saw it. There, half buried in the roots of an enormous tree, was my brush. I stopped breathing. It looked untouched by time, its handle smooth, the bristles dark with ink that had not dried. It pulsed, just slightly, as though alive, as though waiting. I should not have come here. I turned to Zephyra. This is a mistake. She didn't answer. Instead, she knelt before the brush, brushing her fingers along its length. It remembers you, she said softly. I wanted to laugh or run. Instead, I stepped forward. As soon as I did, the wind shifted. A low hum trembled through the clearing, through the roots, through my very skin. My fingers curled. My breath shallowed. I had left this behind for a reason. I had stopped painting for a reason. Yet as my hand reached for the brush, I knew I had never truly let it go. The moment my fingers wrapped around the handle, the world fractured. I gasped, stumbling back. The sky rippled, the trees bending, colors bleeding outward. My vision blurred, but not with darkness, with light. A flood of memory surged through me, unraveling everything I had tried to bury. I saw my past creations, my painted worlds, the ones I had abandoned. I saw the figures I had brought to life, the landscapes I had shaped with strokes of ink and color. And I saw the mistake, the thing I had created and lost control over, the thing that had destroyed everything. My grip tightened on the brush. The sky forest melted around me, and in its place came the echoes, echoes of a world that should not exist, one that I had locked away with my own hands. But it was waking. It had been waiting for me, and now it had found me again. I stood at the edge of the valley, staring at the mountains cloaked in mist. The air was thick with silence, as if the land itself was holding its breath. My boots sank slightly into the damp earth, and the scent of rain yet to fall lingered around me. The drowsy giant, his form blending with the heavy fog, had just spoken, his voice like the rustling of wind through deep caves. Your brush passed through here, carried by the northern winds. The words curled through my thoughts, heavier than the mist itself. My brush, my only tool of creation, lost in the vastness of this strange world. The northern winds were fickle, unpredictable, and yet they had a way of finding their own path. I clenched my fingers, a slow-burning determination replacing my initial despair. "Where did it go?" I asked, my voice uncertain against the weight of the giant's words. His eyelids fluttered, lazily considering the question. "Beyond the silver peaks, where the clouds gather before the dawn." I glanced at the towering mountains before me. Their silhouettes were barely discernible through the mist, their sharp edges softened by the dreamlike haze that clung to them. If the northern winds had carried my brush there, then that was where I must go. "And what awaits me there?" I pressed, though I wasn't certain I wanted the answer. The giant exhaled, and the mist around me thickened, coiling around my ankles like whispers of forgotten stories. That which seeks to be painted, that which is waiting. The cryptic nature of his words sent a shiver down my spine. I had always known my brush held something more than mere color. It captured pieces of the world, glimpses of things unseen. But now, it seemed, the world was searching for me just as I was searching for it. I tightened my cloak around me and took my first step forward. The giant's eyes flickered shut, and I knew he would say no more. The path ahead was mine alone to walk. The mist clung to me as I climbed. My breath came in slow, measured gasps, blending with the cool air. The further I ascended, the more the world seemed to shift. Shapes formed and faded at the edges of my vision, figures of ink and shadow dancing just beyond reach. At first I thought them tricks of the mist, but then one of them turned and looked at me. A woman, or something like one. Her form was blurred, her limbs smudging like watercolor bleeding into paper. Her eyes, however, were sharp and clear, as if they had been painted last, with careful strokes. "You are the one who paints," she said. I stopped, my heart hammering. "I am." Her head tilted, her gaze never leaving me. "Then you must find the frame before you find the brush." "The frame?" I echoed, confusion knotting my brow. "I don't—" But she was gone, dissolved into mist, as though she had never been there at all. A deep unease settled in my bones. I had thought my journey would be simple, retrieve my brush, continue my work, but something larger was at play, something that twisted through the fabric of this world like a hidden thread. Still, I had no choice but to continue. Hours passed, or perhaps days. Time had little meaning in the fog. The ground beneath me shifted, from damp earth to rough stone, and then to something else entirely, something smooth and cold, like glass beneath my fingers. I knelt, brushing away the mist. A frame, perfect in shape, lay embedded in the ground. Its edges gleamed faintly, as if whispering light back into the sky. My chest tightened. The frame before the brush. But what did that mean? As I stared, a gust of wind roared through the valley, and suddenly the mist began to clear. Through the frame I saw a world that was not my own. a world of swirling colors and half-formed images, of things waiting to be made real, and at the center of it all my brush, suspended in the air, waiting. I reached out, and the world shattered around me. The moment we breached the edge of the world and entered the northern skies, my breath caught in my throat. Above us, luminous veils of green, violet, and indigo wove themselves through the heavens, shifting like the ocean's restless tides. Zephyra, ever composed, tilted her head back to take in the splendor, the glow reflecting off her silvered eyes. She said nothing, but the faintest trace of a smile curved her lips. We had arrived. Oriole awaited us, perched upon a crystalline ledge that jutted out from the sky itself, his figure bathed in the glow of the auroras. He was neither young nor old, with hair that rippled like the lights above, shifting through shades of gold and silver. His robes shimmered with the night's brilliance, woven from some celestial thread no mortal hands could fashion. As we landed upon the ledge, I felt the weight of his gaze settle upon us, and though his features were kind, there was an unreadable depth in his eyes. "Marlow," he greeted me, his voice like the whisper of wind through chimes. "And Zephyra, you have traveled far." I inclined my head, for what words could do justice to what I saw before me. "We seek the truth, Oriole. We believed your brush was lost, but it was never lost," he interrupted gently, "only changed." At this he lifted his hand, and between his fingers something pulsed with the light of the auroras. It was not a brush, not anymore. The wooden handle had melted away, and in its place a rod of pure light shimmered. The bristles had dissolved, forming strands of liquid radiance, suspended in an ever-shifting dance. It was no longer a tool for painting the skies. It had become a part of them. Zephyra stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. "But how? Brushes do not simply transform." Oriole smiled, and the lights above flared in response. "Because creation does not end, Zephyra. It evolves. When I sought to mend a tear in the northern sky, my brush did not break. It ascended. It became one with the heavens themselves, a conduit rather than a mere instrument. It is the auroras now, and the auroras are it." A silence stretched between us, thick with understanding and questions left unspoken. I reached out, hesitant, but the moment my fingertips brushed the light, a surge of warmth coursed through me. Images flooded my mind, colors flowing like rivers, shaping the sky, whispering the secrets of the cosmos. I gasped, staggering back as Zephyra steadied me. "The power of creation," Oriole murmured, "is not held in tools, but in the hands of those who dare to wield it." I looked to Zephyra, who met my gaze with a knowing look. This journey had been about more than retrieving a lost artifact. It had been about understanding the nature of change. We had sought a brush, but what we had truly found was something far greater, a force that shaped the very fabric of the heavens. Oriole extended his hand, and the swirling light settled into my palm, weightless yet potent. "The auroras must continue their dance, Marlow. Will you help guide them?" I inhaled deeply, the vast expanse of the northern skies stretching before me, endless and full of promise. Yes, I whispered, the answer settling into my very bones. I will. And with that, the light surged, painting the heavens anew. The first stroke was a trembling one, not from fear, but from the awe that held me captive. The moment my brush met the sky, I felt it, a shiver that ran up my arm and into my very bones, an energy that was neither mine nor entirely foreign. The bristles, now part of the aurora itself, became an extension of my hand, my mind, my soul. Oriole stood beside me, silent but watchful, their golden eyes reflecting the iridescent dance above. You see now, they murmured, what it means to be a creator. I could hardly speak. Every color that bled from the brush was something I had never seen before, hues that had no name, shades that shifted and pulsed with a life of their own. They unfurled across the heavens like ink dropped into water, spiraling, blending, growing. It was more than beauty. It was truth. It was possibility. The sky had always been a canvas, but now I realized it had been waiting for hands that dared to touch it, to change it. My hands. I drew a slow line across the stars, and the light answered. Not passively, not as mere pigment would, but actively, hungrily. It reached forward, twisting and bending into something new, something I hadn't anticipated. The brush hummed in my grip, urging me to continue. And so I did. Colors wove and rippled in endless waves. An ocean turned skyward. Deep violets melted into ember reds, which in turn gave way to golds that shimmered like liquid fire. I lifted the brush, and the light pulsed, holding its breath. A single drop of turquoise lingered in the air before blooming outward like a flower. I marveled at it. I had never imagined anything could feel like this. Oriole chuckled softly, their presence a steady warmth at my side. You're afraid of it, they observed. Afraid of what it might mean. I turned to them, my chest tight. It's more than I thought it would be, I admitted. More than I ever thought I could do. Oriole nodded, their wings shifting slightly. Power is often like that. The word made me hesitate. Power. I had never thought of it that way. I had always seen art as an expression, a way to understand the world, not to shape it. But now the world bent to my touch. I looked back at the sky. The aurora was still alive with the echoes of my strokes, moving as though the heavens themselves had breath. It wasn't static. It never would be. The brush pulsed again. My hand twitched. There was so much more to create. I could feel it. The unspoken invitation lingering in the air. What if I get lost in it? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Oriole's expression softened. You won't. How do you know? Because creation does not consume, it expands. I considered that. The sky was different now. It would never return to what it had been before. And neither would I. I lifted my brush, heart hammering. The stars were waiting. I hesitated, my fingers hovering in the air, an artist without a brush, a magician without a wand. Yet the colors obeyed me. A flick of my wrist sent waves of lavender crashing into a golden sea of light, spilling over the horizon in delicate tendrils. The sky shimmered with my thoughts, each hue an echo of something deeper within me. Memories, emotions, fleeting whispers of dreams I hadn't yet dared to voice. A deep breath, another. I reached out again, hesitant but yearning, and this time the colors did not just respond, they sang. Soft, melodic hums vibrated through my fingertips as I blended dusk into twilight, the sky breathing with me, shifting with every exhale. I was no longer just a spectator in the grand artistry of nature. I was the artist, the conductor, the creator. And it terrified me. I stepped back, the sky still rippling with the aftershock of my influence. My hands trembled, tingling with the power that had surged through them. And for a moment, I wondered if I had imagined it all. But the proof hung above me, painted across the heavens in hues I had only ever dreamed of capturing on canvas. What was this? A gift? A curse? A test? The last thought gripped me cold and sharp. Was there a limit to what I could do? If I could paint the sky, could I mold the earth beneath my feet? Could I rewrite the world itself? The thought both exhilarated and unnerved me, a temptation I wasn't sure I had the strength to resist. The wind stirred, as if sensing my turmoil, whispering through the trees like an old friend, offering comfort. I turned my gaze downward, searching for something, anything to ground me. And that's when I saw her. She stood at the edge of the clearing, watching me, eyes wide with something I couldn't quite place. Awe? Fear? Recognition? The sunset I had painted cast a halo around her, making her seem almost ethereal, like she had stepped out of the very sky I had just shaped. "You did that," she whispered, more statement than question. I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry. "I think so." She stepped closer, her footsteps silent on the soft grass. How indeed? I had no answers, only the sensation, the pull, the way the colors had felt like an extension of myself. "I don't know," I admitted. "It just happened." Her gaze flickered to the sky, then back to me. "Then it's happening for a reason." The certainty in her voice unsettled me. She spoke as if she knew something I didn't, as if she had been waiting for this moment. "Who are you?" I asked. She hesitated, then took another step forward, the sunset catching in the strands of her dark hair. "Someone who's been looking for you." My pulse quickened. "Looking for me? Why?" A small smile touched her lips, enigmatic, knowing. "Because you're not the only one who can do this." My breath hitched. The world tilted slightly, the weight of her words heavier than anything I had carried before. I wasn't alone. "Come with me, Marlow," she said, holding out her hand. "There's so much more you need to see." I looked at her, then at my hands, still tingling with the remnants of the sky's touch. I had stepped into something vast and unknown, and there was no turning back. With one last glance at the masterpiece I had unknowingly created, I reached for her hand and stepped forward into a world I had yet to understand. I stepped through the door of my home, the scent of aged wood and distant rain welcoming me back. The journey had reshaped me, carved away the excesses I once mistook for necessity, and left me with something purer, something I had not known I was searching for. It wasn't the kind of beauty one could touch or hold. It was the kind that settled deep within, an understanding, a peace. I was finally home, not just in walls and a roof, but within myself. The night was still, save for the rustling of wind through the trees beyond my window. I traced the familiar contours of my desk, my fingers brushing over old sketches, half-written letters, remnants of a past self I no longer recognized. The Marlow who had left this place had been grasping for beauty in all the wrong ways. He had measured it by the sharpness of lines, the vibrancy of colors, the perfection of a moment frozen in time. But the Marlow who returned had learned that true beauty was never stagnant. It lived, it breathed, it changed, just as I had. I lowered myself into my chair and gazed at the empty canvas before me. In the past, I would have been filled with frustration, desperate to control the scene that would emerge, the strokes that would define it. But tonight, I simply observed. My fingers itched to create, not for validation, not for approval, but simply because beauty demanded to be expressed, in whatever form it chose to take. For the first time in a long while, I did not pick up a brush. Instead, I leaned back, closed my eyes, and let my thoughts wander through the landscapes of memory. The fields of golden wheat swaying in the afternoon light. The quiet, knowing gaze of a stranger who had once shared their story with me. The sea, endless and wild, daring me to lose myself in its depths. Each moment, a stroke upon the canvas of my heart, a color I had never before understood. Sleep found me effortlessly that night. No longer burdened by the weight of expectation, no longer haunted by what I had lost. I drifted into dreams unburdened, unchained. The sky stretched before me in my mind, vast and unmarked. But it did not ask for paint, nor for precision. It asked only for the truth of my soul, and I gave it freely. Somewhere between wakefulness and slumber, I smiled. Beauty was never about perfection. It was about presence, about knowing that every line, every flaw, every shadow cast by the light was necessary, was right. And so, I slept, dreaming of skies yet to be painted, not with a brush, but with my heart.